The Mississippi River drainage basin collects water from tributaries across 31 U.S. states and 2 Canadian provinces. The Mississippi River drains water from its source in northern Minnesota to its outlet in the Gulf of Mexico, gathering water from tributaries which feed it along the way. This water is collected from 41% of the United States and stretches a large section of U.S. agricultural land. Industrial agriculture, the intensive production of crops and animals, introduces large amounts of organic and inorganic chemicals into the environment. Much of the water entering the Gulf of Mexico contains high quantities of nutrients, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and calcium, in addition to the wastewater runoff from animal agriculture. Water pollution occurs when heavy rains, excessive irrigation, and other forms of runoff wash these nutrients into streams, tributaries, and eventually into the ocean. This fresh water, high in nutrients, becomes stratified with seawater. This is because the warmer fresh water coming from the Mississippi does not mix into the cold, high-density salt water of the Gulf. The immense amount of nutrients like nitrogen that are introduced into the Gulf results in a condition called eutrophication. This is where excessive nutrients spark massive phytoplankton blooms, also referred to as algal blooms. Eutrophication often results in another condition called hypoxia. Hypoxia is the condition of not having enough dissolved oxygen adequate for sustaining life. The fresh water on the surface produces prolific phytoplankton numbers. However, the high-density salt water below is unable to mix with the surface waters, resulting in a declining oxygen level. As phytoplankton die, aerobic microorganisms decompose the dead matter and strip the lower stratified waters of its oxygen, resulting in the hypoxic conditions. A study titled "Extent of the Annual Gulf of Mexico Hypoxic Zone Influences Microbial Community Structure," published in 2019, found that Thaumarchiota, a type of microorganism, was found to be prolific in hypoxic bottom layer samples of water collected in the northern Gulf of Mexico. Samples collected in 2013 and 14 concluded that the northern Gulf of Mexico and the annual reoccurrence of dead zones has become a hotspot for adapted low-oxygen microorganisms. This graph shows samples which illustrate the increased biodiversity of microorganisms in the bottom hypoxic samples as compared to the lower diversity found in the oxic or oxygen-rich surface samples. There is specifically an increase in the organisms classified as Thaumarchiota, indicated in yellow, which are plentiful in hypoxic conditions. These box plots illustrate the distribution of different groups of microorganisms that were most prolific in the hypoxic bottom samples. These areas where hypoxia occur are known as dead zones, as they are unable to sustain any life besides some bacteria. These hypoxic zones result in massive die-offs of fish and other marine animals. A clear indication of a dead zone is when massive quantities of dead fish, also known as a fish kill, wash ashore. The Gulf of Mexico's dead zone occurs annually and is one of 400 recorded dead zones throughout the world, 200 of them being in the United States. They often occur around coastal areas and even in the Great Lakes. The second largest dead zone is found in the Gulf of Mexico.